Hello class, hello everyone, this is your teacher, or your instructor, the Daily Joker 77. I would love to teach forensics for real. This would be fun. I can probably do substitute work, maybe, on the side, just for fun in my high school I used to go to. I think that would be really interesting. Don't think my former teacher would mind, but anyway, this is episode 3 of Forensics Crash Course, Crime Scene Procedure and Investigation. So we're going to be covering, as it entails, proceeding to basically process and investigate the crime scene and what it all entails into it. I mean, this is a lot. I mean, just look at this. This is all my notes I wrote down. A lot. There's steps. There's an example I'll show. So, got plenty of work put into this. So, this is right up my alley. This is my forte. Next episode is ballistics. I cannot wait. It's going to be so fun. Alright. Get out your notepads, or get out your tablet, whatever if you're taking notes, I applaud you because, maybe you're actually taking a course right now, maybe you're in high school taking an elective on this, maybe you're in college taking this course, and hopefully I help out. Hopefully you learn something. That is my enjoyment, that is my goal, that you learn something, that you enjoy this subject that is very morbid, but is very interesting. It has been something I've wanted to do. Crime scene investigation is something I want to do one day. I want to specialize in ballistics because it's just another thing that's up my alley. Just another big kind of a subject of forensics. So first of all, we have to cover samples that may be collected at a crime scene. This is very crucial to understanding, what would crime scene processing one entail and stuff like that. So here we go. Biological evidence. Now this could be blood, this could be adult hair, bodily fluids, hair, and other tissues. So it could be anything that the body excretes or that was all over the crime scene at that time. It could be homicide, it could be anything. Sorry, I'm trying not to laugh. It could be anything, but really, bodily fluids, oh god. I don't even want to think about that even if I get to be a crime scene investigator and we actually get to be cops, which is another dream of mine, so that's really fun. If I'm not wrong, you do earn rank, so rank dictates your pay. Also, if you're working for a federal or local agency, it also depends on your pay, so those are all factors leading to it. Latent prints evidence, which could be fingerprints, palm prints, and footprints. Basically, that's pretty straightforward there. It's 1 in a million's chance of finding a fingerprint at a crime scene, 1 in a million. But if it's a burglary, for example, or that's a huge example, actually, you will find fingerprints almost all over the place. The robber would touch anything, or suspects would touch anything. You're gonna find fingerprints everywhere, maybe broken or complete fingerprints. So that's another subject I have to go into is fingerprints. That'll be a short one, but it's necessary. It's another part. Just like ballistics, it's another part of it. Trace evidence, we've covered this. There were some huge examples of trace evidence I covered, but here's the other kinds that I didn't. Fiber, soil, vegetation, glass fragments, which actually I did. Oh, I did cover this a little bit in my previous episode. Trace evidence was our first lesson in this crash course, and then I covered blood in the second episode. There's a playlist on my channel, check them out. That'll help you out immensely. Digital evidence could be cell phone recordings, internet logs, email messages, video camera recordings like security cameras. That's a lot of examples. Tool and tool mark evidence. Basically, I'm talking about maybe a hammer struck a wall if the suspect missed on the attack, and that little imprint or the indent of the blunt part of the hammer or the sharp end of the hammer is going to be left thusly on the object or the wall, for example. Could be anything. Drug evidence. Okay, this could be maybe the suspects shot up a little hard drugs, or maybe they smoked some weed, maybe the ashes are all over the place, maybe they spilled some weed. That's crucial evidence to find at the crime scene. Firearm evidence. It could be shell casings, it could be the firearm itself, which the suspects would be an idiot to leave because it would just make our job a lot easier. It just would. It could be gunshot residue, which doesn't only get left on the suspect, it goes everywhere. It's little particles of the gunpowder. So that's another thing. It could be, say, besides shell casings, gun residue, gunshot residue, sorry, or the firearm. It could be the bullet itself. If it's a through and through, it's going to get lodged into something. It just will. Alright, so those are the examples. Now we're processing crime scene. Okay, here's an example. A shooting homicide, or a... What's another way to term that? Fuck, I may have termed that wrong. Yeah, pretty much a homicide involving a shooting. Pretty much is the way to say it. There's no other way to say it. So, this would be the steps to processing. And these can be done out of order. I will go into further ways of how the crime scene is established, and thusly, therefore, all the other steps. These are the main. Photograph and document evidence, the scene, and in this example, the body. You want to take photographs of the body from all kinds of angles. Bird's eye, from the feet, from the head. You want to take all angles and all kinds of ways of photographing the body in a homicide that involves a gunshot. That was the cause of the death, then that's determined through the photographs and everything. Then the ME will confirm time of death and the kinds of wounds involved, and those will be photographed further. So, there's a lot that goes into it, trust me. A lot. Okay, the second is collect evidence. It can be traced, etc. Collect low-level DNA evidence by swabbing areas of, for example, where the blood etc., stained or made likely contact in the scene. In a homicide involving a gun, there's going to be a lot of blood all over the place, depending where the victim got shot. It could have been from a window, so you're going to probably see some glass fragments because the bullet will shatter part of the window. You're going to want to photograph the window. Because it'll show the trajectory from where the bullet hole, and then obviously trace it, and that's ballistics, so that's another discussion for another day class. Locate and collect other latent fingerprints of suspects or the victim, because what if there's a struggle before the gun fired and killed the victim? So there's all this kind of factors you have to consider. Here we go. Who examines the crime scenes or the scene? Because there could be a secondary crime scene, you never know. You might have to expand the crime scene further to a 2-mile radius. You never know what could happen. You could, through your initial walkthrough or survey, you could find there's a trail leading to more evidence. Like I said, expand the crime scene, or there could be a secondary, so you never know what can happen. The number and type of personnel professionals responsible for investigating a scene or collecting evidence largely depends on the type of crime and the resources of the law enforcement agency. It could be a federal case, it could be a local law enforcement case, you never know. Larger agencies often have dedicated, highly trained crime scene specialists, like ballistics. There could be just a lead CSI investigator. It could be dealing with bugs, or it could deal with, oh god, what others are there? There's a lot, now that I think about it. I'll cover that in some other time. There's too much to name. While smaller agencies may require that first responders or detectives process the scene in addition to other duties. The case in point, you never know, like I said, if a detective or a officer or EMTs, just be officers or detectives, you never know which could first respond to the scene before the crime scene investigators get there. So sometimes it would require, like I said, the first responders. Sometimes an EMT is a first responder to a homicide. They call it the local law enforcement, or the local law enforcement will thusly directly contact the specialist CSI or the CSI team in general. In many instances, the case will be investigated by a detective who is responsible for interviewing persons of interest or victims, pursuing leads, and piecing together the information that is developed from the materials collected at the scene. Thusly, the detective works in tandem with the team of CSI personnel who search the scene and collect the evidence. Pretty straightforward. The CSI team may consist of crime scene photographers, evidence collection personnel specializing in gathering specific evidence such as latent prints, DNA, trace, etc. It goes on and on. Alright, here we go. How a crime scene investigation is conducted. There's going to be 7 steps here. The circumstances that investigators encounter at the scene will largely dictate the approach used to process the scene. So, let's say there's a drive-by shooting, and it could have been outside, or it could have been large caliber guns that had bullets enter the home and wound or kill the victims. In this case, we're assuming that the victims were killed as a result of the drive-by, or there was a break-in, guns are fired, so on and so forth. So it all depends on what basically the circumstances of the crime that happened, or how the crime scene investigators will approach to process the scene. A homicide will likely require different treatment and processing than a burglary, for example. However, to ensure a thorough process of 7 steps I'm about to explain here, and I will, are often followed. They can be out of order, combined, or even skipped altogether to meet the needs of the situation. Alright, so, first step, establish the scene dimensions and identify potential safety and health hazards. This is a lot to cover here. Investigators initially locate the focal point of the scene, the main area of disturbance. So, basically, the main focal point, in this case, a homicide involving a shooting. We have the victim's body, and we have, thusly, the evidence resulting within that room or area. We will determine the center or focal point of the scene. Radiating out from that point, investigators establish an area, sorry, my writing is close together sometimes, to likely contain all relevant physical evidence that may be present. There are going to be shell casings and so on and so forth involved in this kind of homicide. Safety is of paramount importance during the initial approach to the scene. Weapons, biohazards, chemical hazards, even intentional traps could be waiting for responders. You never know what kind of situation you're dealing with. That's why, establishing the scene, identify potential safety and health hazards. You never know what could happen. Oh, God. If medical, fire, or coroners will be on scene, they will need to be advised regarding events. Yeah, sorry. Hold on, give me a second. Basically issues that will be trying to word this. God damn it. Basically any issues that will regard their safety and well-being, or that were circumstances of the crime that they need to be there. Sometimes you have to word things differently, because sometimes there are words I can just not pronounce here. So, tongue twisting, I word things differently a little bit. Establish security. This is huge. So you will have, besides your CSI, you need to establish security. You never know if there's going to be some crazy motherfucker that's going to try to get to the CSI, so you're going to have law enforcement or other kinds of security, depending on what type of agency is investigating. If this is a military crime, huge thing to do. Okay, this is why. According to Locard's exchange principle, Locard, which I will get into another episode regarding what forensics are and is. Locard's exchange principle: every person who enters or exits the scene will add or subtract material from the crime scene. So basically, there could be someone posing as a crime scene investigator, and they could take away evidence from the scene that needs to be logged and documented, and that could fuck up a lot, because then it goes into internal investigation and all this shit. It's just a lot. So it is crucial to quickly secure the area. In addition to control access, the scene may be cornered off with yellow crime scene tape, cones, or by other means. So there's a lot that happens to do that. A common entryway is of common entryway is often established. That all crime scene personnel will use to enter and exit the scene, and all people entering or leaving the scene are documented or logged once the boundaries are established. So there is an actual log that every personnel or every person signs to document who entered, who left the scene throughout the time is investigated. Third step, plan, communicate, coordinate. Investigators will develop a theory regarding the type of crime that occurred before collecting evidence. Knowing the type of crime will help investigators anticipate the evidence that may be present. Factors are numerous, but here's a couple or a few. Factors are weather conditions, time of day, etc., environmental conditions. It goes on and on, people. Number 4, numero 4. I cannot remember the Spanish for 4, sorry. Conduct a primary survey walkthrough. This is going to be pretty straightforward. An initial survey of the scene is then conducted to prioritize evidence collection. Pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory. During this process, the lead investigator will identify potentially valuable evidence, take notes, and capture initial photos of the scene evidence. So thusly, the lead investigator in the example that I have will document or photograph the body of the victim and the surrounding area of the scene to prioritize everything. So the scene is documented to record conditions. Here's some examples. Whether the lights were on and off. There could have been ambient lighting. Position of the shades and doors. Just like I said, like shades could be open, lights could be on or off. Ambient lighting. Doors could have been opened or closed before arriving on the scene. Position of movable furniture. Tongue twisting here. So, movable furniture means, okay, were the chairs in a odd position where they knocked over? Like I said, where there a struggle before the victim was killed? There's also any smells present. That could be definitely a crucial factor. Let's say another example. There could be a fire, there could be an arson. So they're identifying the accelerant's origin, the origin of the blaze that caused the arson crime. And temperature of the scene is extremely important, and etc. So temperature of the scene is extremely important because that will affect the body's temperature at time of death, and once the ME has taken a temperature of the body, and like I said, determine time of death, approximate. Document and process the scene. This is pretty easy. With a plan in place, the CSI team conducts a thorough, coordinated investigation of the scene, collecting all probative evidence, meaning important evidence or crucial evidence, photographing everything. This initial detailed documentation, this entails detailed documentation with digital and video cameras, if possibly available, a 3D scanner. They can actually scan the environment of the crime scene, the whole entire thing, and walk through it with virtual reality. This is really done in reality here nowadays, because then they can, like I said, walk through it. They could have more of an insight into the crime scene. It's very interesting. During the evidence collection process, it is crucial that the crime scene investigator follows proper procedures for collecting, packaging, and preserving the evidence, especially if of a biological nature. And sometimes there's a drawing of the crime scene or a diagram done. Just forgot to say that. Number 6, conduct a secondary survey review. To ensure that the scene has been thoroughly searched, a secondary survey of the area is conducted as quality control step. Like I said, there could be things they've missed. Maybe there's a secondary crime scene. They will find that out within the secondary survey. And finally, record and preserve evidence to make certain that all evidence is accounted for. An inventory log is created. So everything is thusly written down. Everything is logged and documented to make sure all evidence has been accounted for. Alright, so this conducts my third lesson here, my third episode of my series Forensics Crash Course. Thank you for attending class today, and hopefully you've learned something and enjoy this as I go along. Please comment your thoughts and everything, what I could have gotten wrong, what I got right. I don't know, maybe I could have been wrong with something, It's just based on whatever knowledge I have and whatever research I put into it. So, give me your thoughts. Thank you, and I shall see you later.